Welcome back everyone on the channel, my name is Jim, and today we're going to try something new over here. I've always wanted to get into doing game reviews, but I've always just not really known how to articulate my points of view when taking a look at these games in a way that might appeal to many people. We're going to break this down into basically, should you buy this for your Switch? I'm going to cover many ports on here, but also new releases and older, more obscure games as well for the Switch collector out there. There might be a lot of stuff you've been interested in, but not really sure if it's worth splurging for. So throughout the course of this series, we're going to take a look at all sorts of games. Today we're going to be reviewing The Outer Worlds. It just recently released on the Switch, and it was met with a lot of distaste and dislike for its presentation. Today we're going to take a look from a standard gamer's perspective of this and review this game more so based on how it runs, how it looks, and how it feels. And if it's a game worth getting. Is this a port that you should get for your Switch collection? And try it out, you know? Will it fill that Fallout void you're feeling with your Switch? Let's find out together. You know, let me know what you guys think. I'm excited to try this out. Let's do our first Switch review on this channel. Okay. The first thing we're going to take a look at in this review is we're going to look at exactly how does this game look. Now, the reports have come in and people have shown that the Switch port does not visually hit right when comparing it to its counterparts on other platforms. And that part is true. Textures do have a big problem loading in this port. The ground, the water, and everything that should look smooth and beautiful does look smudged and messy at most times. That doesn't necessarily mean that the game looks terrible overall, but it has been met that many complaints are because of this game's visuals. People wanted something that looks smoother, something more visually pleasing, and the game really shows its limits when you are outside in the environment. When you're inside buildings, it's not as bad, or inside your ship quarters, because those instances seem to be a bit more well done. But when you're out in the open, the game does look very just kind of slapped together. That can be disappointing for a lot of fans who are just looking for a shooter that looks smooth. There is hope though, however, that this game will get updated, it will get patched to look a bit better, and that is entirely possible. It's important to note when you're entering an area that the textures do start to load and the game does start to look slightly better, but it does take a few seconds upon entering to kind of all come together and make the scenery work. The nice thing is though, the character models are still fairly solid, so when you are interacting with NPCs and that, it does still feel pretty good in that sense. They look good. The backgrounds though behind the characters usually do look kind of messy. The best way I would compare this game is, you know, clearly to Fallout New Vegas, if Fallout New Vegas were running on the PlayStation 2 in some ways when it comes to kind of the textures and the backgrounds and that. Fortunately, though, the character models are decently done, so it does still have some visual pleasure when coming to that. The next part we're going to talk about is going to be the combat of the game, and this is a major chunk of the gameplay. You're going to be constantly fighting marauders and different creatures all throughout your experience with this title. One issue I've noticed pertaining to the Switch version is when I'm running through an area and there aren't any enemies nearby, a buffering symbol will appear, the game will freeze, and then enemies will load in. This has only happened to me when roaming around the open world environments, but it is a bit concerning that while you're traversing through this game, suddenly you will be hit with a buffering screen, especially when you want kind of a fast-paced action sequence. Now, luckily there is an auto-aim feature, which is pretty handy when taking on enemies. The nice thing about this game is it has a companion system as well, and they are helpful. Hip firing helps a lot too when shooting at enemies, and I don't notice really much of a frame drop when it comes to being in combat. I know a lot of complaints have happened when that occurs. The nice thing is there is a variety of different guns in this game, which is really helpful. On top of that, you know, you can kind of cater your gunplay to how you feel in particular. You know, if you want more of the fast approach, I really recommend using the assault rifle, but keep in mind that ammo will deplete quickly when lodging them into enemies. The The game is fairly manageable on the normal difficulty setting, and that's the standard that I would recommend for most people. The other nice thing about this game is its melee combat. Now, it can take a bit of time and it can be kind of tricky when playing with the melee functions because, you know, a lot of the times the enemy movements can be somewhat sporadic and you'll be swinging and constantly missing. But luckily the game does have a system in place to make your aim a bit easier. You do have a slow-mo mechanic which has appeared in other Fallout games, and this can be really handy when trying to land hits on enemies. More importantly, using this mechanic can be great for popping off a healing item when trying to avoid being hit by an enemy. Your AI companions do a fairly good job of targeting enemies and attacking them properly. I would recommend melee combat for close encounters, but once again, it is a bit hard when aiming when playing this game. It feels a bit slow. Now that can be limited to the fact that I'm typically used to playing shooters on PC, and going back to controller shooters can be kind of difficult. Now, another feature that's been added into this game is it does use the Switch's gyro controls to add a motion aiming. Now, I personally really dislike motion aiming. It's added into a lot of shooters on the Switch to make it easier for some people that are used to it. But me personally, I'm not a big fan of the mechanic. I tend to turn this feature off. If you prefer that, that's great. It's not the worst. It works fairly well, I would say. I don't think it's too overly sensitive, and you can play with the settings to kind of see how it goes for you. But I do find it kind of janky personally. I never use it in Splatoon or Overwatch on the Switch, so I don't know why I would start using it in this game. But for those that prefer gyro controls, there are those. And the nice thing is you can turn these controls to just be on when you are aiming, so therefore it's not controlling your camera all the time. But if you prefer the gyro controls, you can turn them on for your overall ability to look around in the world. The other big thing to talk about in this game is how does it feel? Yes, we know that visually it can be a bit jarring at times, that it's not the most visually pleasing game, but it does have its charm. How does the game feel? Well, overall, sprinting, combat, they're all somewhat decent. I didn't really feel like I was hindered when playing this game. You're able to jump pretty fluidly, and you're also able to crouch, and I don't really notice any drop frames when in combat. I know some people have reported experiencing that, and maybe I've just not noticed it, but overall, frame drops I haven't noticed much. The buffering issue, yes, that is a bit worrisome, and I do hope that's able to be fixed. It can completely disconnect the experience for you. But overall, I would say that the game plays fairly decently. It does kind of scratch that whole Fallout itch, and you'll see right there that I just had that buffering issue happen. And I'm not entirely sure why it happens, but it does occur. And it's just important to note that it is something that happens. Don't let it throw you off too much. It typically only lasts a second or two. I did have it last for a total of 5 seconds yesterday when an encounter, but I believe it is just meant to spawn enemies in. I think it's how the game works to get the whole mechanics of enemy spawns in. So the open world just doesn't flow as well as I would like. But again, combat's not bad. You know, the game could look prettier. It does look prettier on other platforms. But overall, I do enjoy this game. And I want to bring that to my next point talking here. This game has charm. The writing is great. The voice acting is great. The interactions with different characters, the quests and the side quests are great. There are a lot of really well-written dialogues in this game. I think it's quite enjoyable. The story perspective is very nice, and it does feel like Fallout in space. The game overall is a solid game. I wouldn't let the visuals and certain issues take too much away from the core experience. I have been very much enjoying my time with The Outer Worlds on the Switch, and my only complaints are the buffering screens, really, and I do wish that the world looked a bit smoother. But I do enjoy that the character models turn out decent. I do enjoy the mechanics of the game. It does have a very solid leveling system. And speaking of that, whenever you level, there are different perks that you can get for your character. There are different additions. You can keep an eye on all your quests and everything. Different attributes that you can level up with your character, which is very nice. Skills that you can level up to change the experience. I really recommend pumping up your dialogue for certain situations because you might need that extra, snake-like tongue to convince people to do horrible things. And that's another great thing about this game is the choice. The choices done in the quests and the dialogues with characters are great. You can decide to take out entire factions and not do their quests. You can do horrible things to them, or you could try to do the right thing. It's entirely up to you. I do also enjoy the perk system. There are a lot of great perks with it. The inventory is broken down nice. I do enjoy that things are separated, your consumables for your health and that. I will also recommend that when playing on normal, you do come along health items quite often. I've yet to actually die in this game where I couldn't run away. But your weapons and your armor do degrade over time. So it's important to break down items and always make sure that you're able to repair. You can do that at weapon benches, which is also really nice. Other than that, the game, it just works well. The dialogue's there, the core of the game is there. It feels like they still managed to bring the core of the Outer Worlds to the Switch, and I'm happy that they did. So what I'd like to say overall are my closing thoughts on this. I think that the Outer Worlds is a decent port to the Switch. We know that the Switch is only so powerful, and yes, some ports are treated better than others, but I am glad that they at least put in the work to get this on the Switch for us gamers. It does, in my opinion, scratch that Fallout void that hopefully will get ports of Fallout games down the road. This could be a good step in that direction. I do hope that it is patched to improve the visuals. That's really my only complaint about it. The buffering and the visuals need a bit of tweaking, but the game has charm. It has a lot of charm, and that's awesome. And I love the quests. I love the characters that you get for your party. I do like the different guns I've come across and the melee weapons. The hammer has been my favorite weapon of all time. I constantly find myself yelling out it's hammer time. It's just one of those things, So let's break it down. Core gameplay, good. Dialogue, good. Music, good. Loading screens and buffering, a bit tiresome, but they're there and, I can accept them as we go. Visually, not the best, but I've seen worse. There are worse looking games on the Switch and other consoles for that matter. And playability, I think it's there. The story's there. I think it's overall strong. Now, the verdict. Should you buy this game? In my opinion, if you have nothing else you're looking forward to and you haven't already picked up BioShock or Borderlands on the Switch, and you want something different and you haven't played this game before, I can, in my honest opinion, recommend getting the Outer Worlds for full price. But if you played this game before and you're excited for the port, but the price tag is a bit daunting with how this looks and feels, I would recommend waiting a couple months for a price drop. I can easily see this title getting dropped. It is a shame that it is launching at full retail price when the game is free on Game Pass and it is cheaper on other consoles while running superior. So a bit disappointed on the price point, but I don't really know if that's on Obsidian or if that's on Nintendo. Overall, I don't regret purchasing it at full price. I'm continuing to enjoy playing through this game on the live stream. Make sure to check that out, twitch.tv/JimVentures. We would love to plug the channel here. Let me know what you all think. I'd love to hear your comments in the comment section. Give this a like or dislike, share the video, subscribe if you've enjoyed it. Let me know your opinions on this game, all right? Or any other questions you might have. Thank you so much for joining me for my first review on this channel. I'm looking forward to expressing and changing the format as needed as time goes, and I am totally open to criticism and direction on how these videos should go. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. My name's Jim, and I will see you guys all in the next video.